Okay, this is the third and final round of speeches among the friends, and as usual, Job is the one to kick things off. He asks for their patience as he speaks to them, asking that they would not interrupt, but would rather listen carefully to him. We've heard from the friends directly that they are growing impatient with him. Perhaps their impatience is obvious and evident in their mannerisms as Job speaks. Perhaps they are trying to cut across him, but Job says, "Listen carefully to my words. Let this be the consolation you give me. Bear with me while I speak, and after I have spoken, mock on." He has no hope that his friends will change their minds, that they will see, sense, and understand the truth. The most he thinks he can ask of them is that they might be quiet while he speaks. And then he addresses some of the claims of the friends. Now, again, we've said before that there is truth in there and there is error in there, in these speeches of the friends. And what we've particularly got to watch out for is something that is true in isolation, twisted and misapplied to this specific situation. So, here is what is true from the previous speech. The wicked will get what is coming to them. Now, here's what Zophar didn't say. You may have to zoom out an awfully long way in order to actually see that judgment come crashing down upon them. It is undeniably true that nobody gets away with their sin in the end. But it may well be true that in the short term, people appear to get away with their sin while they are down here on earth. And Job here points out the obvious fallacy in their apparently rock-solid theology. They say the wicked suffer and the righteous prosper. Simple as that. It's always been that way. It will always be that way. And Job says to them, as he could just as easily say to us, but can't you point to dozens of obviously wicked people who prosper? And God does not seem to intervene or cut them down. God apparently lets them get away with it, at least for now. He says, verse 7, "Why then do the wicked live on, growing old and increasing in power? They see their children established around them, their offspring before their eyes. Their homes are safe and free from fear. The rod of God is not on them." In the New Testament, we're introduced to a man who has a Jewish name. His name is Zacchaeus. It means the righteous one. Parents would give their children names either because those names accurately describe their child or because those names describe what they hoped they would grow up to be. This little boy was brought up in his Jewish family, presumably hearing all about the importance of following God, being righteous as God is righteous. But this boy turned into a man and decided that he would become a traitor against his own people, that he would impoverish them by propping up the Roman Empire and in the process making himself fabulously wealthy. He was a tax collector. He was a wicked man, and he was prospering beyond his wildest dreams. In fact, not just a tax collector, but a chief tax collector. And, Luke tells us, he was wealthy. Now, you and I know how that story ends. It does not end with the ongoing arrogance of Zacchaeus. It ends with Zacchaeus being brought low by his own choice, being poor on earth because he has treasure in heaven. Now, we know that that state of being wicked and prosperous was a temporary thing in his life. And we also know that it is a temporary thing in the life of anyone enjoying that strange combination of circumstances, being both wicked and wealthy. That will not last forever. That will be brought to an end. The person who has placed themselves so high and considers themselves to be so powerful, they will be humbled. The only question is, will they choose to humble themselves and turn from their wicked ways, or will God humble them and bring them low? Now, Job is saying these things to make a point, and that is that you cannot take a snapshot of reality and pretend that you understand the entire story. What makes this so difficult for Job, and indeed to his friends, if we're going to be gracious to them, is that they do not have a well-rounded view of what happens on the other side of death. That much is very clear from the end of Job's words here. He talks about the lavish funerals of those who are evil, and how they were carried off to the grave, and everyone follows after them, and a countless throng goes before them. This is a funeral procession that Job is describing, as people make a great big fuss about a person who was evil. Job is not here thinking in eternal categories, and therefore he cannot see that this too is temporary. They haven't truly reached the finish line, prospering in their wickedness. Instead, death is really the start line of eternity, and they have made a big mistake. Paul thinking in eternal categories, talks about his earthly suffering being light and momentary compared with the eternal glory that far outweighs it all. And so if we are suffering but faithfully following God, we can be certain that in the end, it will make sense. And that suffering, though serious on earth, will be immediately outweighed by the weight of glory we get to enjoy on the other side of death. And the opposite is also true. If we are indulging our sin continually, if we go on unrepentantly, if we oppress others brutally, if we care about nothing more than our own prosperity, then there is a strong possibility that we might be able to forge ahead in life, and God may even, apparently, let us get away with it. But one day we will meet the grave, and we will immediately find out that we were fools, and we had spent our lives chasing after the wind.